Tonight, a milestone in the fight against COVID-19, an FDA panel recommending the Pfizer vaccine for kids ages 5 to 11. The decision comes after the company's data showed the kid-sized dose was more than 90% effective. If approved, it would be the first U.S. COVID vaccine for younger children. But how soon could shots start going into arms? And tonight, a doctor who led one of the clinical studies into the Pfizer vaccine and children joins Top Story. What he found. Also, the potential bomb cyclone on the East Coast. Rounds of torrential rain sparking flash flooding and causing hazardous conditions on the roads. The storm taking down trees and power lines. Some areas gearing up for hurricane-force wind gusts. All eyes on Virginia. President Biden hoping to help secure a Democratic win in the state's key race for governor. The contest expected to be an early indicator for the midterm elections. Now neck and neck as it heads into the final week. Steve Kornacki at the big board for Top Story tonight. Cinematographer's final moments, a crew member sharing the last photo of Helena Hutchins on the set of Rust before she was killed by a prop gun fired by Alec Baldwin. Authorities seizing guns and ammo from the set as investigators try to piece together what happened. Hockey abuse scandal, the investigation finding the Chicago Blackhawks failed to act on a player's sexual assault allegation against a coach during their 2010 Stanley Cup run. The team fined $2 million and the general manager now out of a job. And Chappelle going solo. The comedian now addressing the controversy over his Netflix special, The Closer. What he's saying, plus he's revealing his new documentary is being shut out. Top Story starts right now. And good evening, I'm Tom Llamas. We begin Top Story tonight with breaking news. The country is one step closer to its first COVID-19 vaccine for younger children. In a nearly unanimous vote, an FDA advisory panel has voted to recommend Pfizer's vaccine for emergency use in kids ages 5 to 11. The panel making the decision after data from the company showed the kid-sized two-shot vaccine was more than 90% effective in preventing serious illness in that age group. The full FDA is now expected to make a final ruling in the coming days. If authorized, it would make 28 million more Americans eligible for the vaccine. Last week, the White House said it will equip doctors' offices, community health centers, rural health clinics, and tens of thousands of pharmacies to administer those shots. Let's get right to NBC News correspondent Sam Brock, who leads us off tonight.
Okay, ready? Tonight, a near unanimous all clear from the FDA panel reviewing Pfizer vaccine data for 5 to 11-year-olds.
Dr. Gans voted yes. So this concludes the vote.
Paving the way for an additional 28 million children who would be eligible for a COVID shot, potentially in days, pending final FDA and CDC approval.
Any way that we can make it safer and keep them in school, I think is worth it.
The Pfizer data reviewed today shows that its child-sized dose, about a third of what's given to adults, is more than 90% effective at preventing symptomatic COVID infection in that age group. Though some hold deep reservations. 6 in 10 parents in a recent study say they would wait and see or won't vaccinate their children at all. Some parents we spoke with say they aren't anti-vaccine, but have concerns about mandates.
I'm not opposed to vaccines. It's just that it's just so new. And, you know, we don't know what the long-term effects are yet.
And potential side effects.
Definitely the myocarditis, that's an issue.
Myocarditis is an inflammation of the heart seen in a small percentage of adolescent boys and young men taking Pfizer or Moderna. Today, experts noted there wasn't a single case of myocarditis observed in Pfizer's roughly 3,000-person trial among 5 to 11-year-olds.
I feel very comfortable recommending these vaccines for young children. I've recommended it for my own grandchildren. When my daughters call me and say to me, what should we do? I say, the minute the vaccine is available, get your kids the vaccine.
Pressing the issue, the looming holidays and cold weather pulling more people indoors. Nationally, COVID cases have plunged more than 60% since the recent peak in September. But still, there are more than 70,000 infections a day, and kids can pass along the virus to more vulnerable Americans.
The primary reason to do it is to protect them, but also getting them vaccinated will help bring infection numbers down across the community for everybody. So it's really important that we get kids vaccinated.
All right, Sam Brock joins us now live. Sam, we saw there in your story some discussion over these mandates, and there was also discussion among the FDA committee about mandates as well.
Yeah, no uncertain terms, Tom. This committee said what they would like to do is give parents the option to get their kids vaccinated. But several members, 3 or 4, if not more, expressed misgivings about what happens after the approval. They say, we can't control what states do or what counties do, but what we are not asking for here is a mandate for young school kids to get vaccinated with this vaccine before they're even able to get back into the classroom. And I would add the emergency use authorization, which is what this would come under. So far, no state or county has implemented a mandate under that. But once it becomes a fully approved vaccine, that could change the dynamic. Tom?
That could definitely change. I want to show our viewers a quick video that we just saw in your story there because it's important in case they have concerns about whether it's a child's dose or an adult dose. Talk to us about this image that we're seeing here.
Look, I talked to physicians who said they also share those concerns. They told me that Pfizer instructed them that their new COVID vaccine for kids is going to come in a different shaped vial, a different color, so it should be obvious. The biggest concern maybe might not be taking the wrong vaccine, but drawing the adult formula into the child's vial. But even if that were to happen, it's not a material difference, at least in that small dosage, Tom.
Sam Brock leading us off tonight on Top Story with that breaking news. Sam, thank you. Dr. Emmanuel Walter joins us now. He's the director of the Duke Vaccine and Trials Unit. He's a pediatrician, and he led Duke's clinical trials for Pfizer's pediatric COVID-19 vaccine. Dr. Walter, thanks so much for joining Top Story tonight. I guess I want to ask you, what's the most important finding you have from the trial that you can share with our viewers?
Yeah, well, thanks, Tom. I think the biggest thing that we can say is that first, that the vaccine's safe. 2, that children get protection from COVID at the same level as older adolescents and adults. And then lastly, that we know the vaccine works in children this age.
So, Doctor, I have a question for you. We know that the kids 5 to 11 are going to get a third of the dose that kids 12 and older get. But my question is, sometimes 5-year-olds are much smaller than 11-year-olds. Why are they getting the same amount of the dose?
That's a really good question, Tom. I think when we studied the vaccine in children and evaluated it, we actually included different age categories. So we did include children between the ages of 5 to 11, and then we've also are still evaluating younger children under the ages of 5 and looking at a different dose in that age group. But when you look at all the children in that group, actually the vaccine seems to work quite well.
So, a poll from the Kaiser Family Foundation came out. It found that 40% of parents are sort of going to wait and see what happens with the vaccine and their kids. Another 25% said they're pretty much no, they're out. You combine those two groups and you have well over a majority. What would you say to those parents who are hesitant? And what kind of side effects did you see in this trial?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can, be reassured by the vast numbers of people, adults and adolescents who've gotten this vaccine actually at a higher dose than we're giving to children. And children, we're giving a third of the dose that'll be given to adults. And, in the studies that we've done to date, the side effects appear to be quite comparable to those that we saw in adolescents and adults. So, I think I can comfortably say that the vaccine is safe.
Duke's Dr. Emmanuel Walter, we appreciate his analysis. We want to turn now to weather. We're following this potential bomb cyclone that's brewing, a powerful nor'easter sweeping across New England. The storm already drenching the Northeast with millions now under flood alerts, up to 3 inches of rain falling in parts of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, with more on the way. High winds also toppling trees and power lines. This tree, look at this, crashing onto a car in New York City. Parts of the East Coast now bracing for hurricane-force wind gusts, and officials are warning residents to be prepared for power outages. Stephanie Gosk has the latest.
The fury of the season's first nor'easter beginning overnight with torrential rain. In some places, a month's worth in less than a day. In Cape Cod, Massachusetts, the surging water trapped a woman in her car, stuck in the unrelenting deluge. A flash flood watch was put in place in New York, the city still recovering from the deadly effects of Hurricane Ida in September, which claimed 11 lives and shut down the subway. But for this storm, a much less intense one, the city was ready.
We had teams out dropping sandbags around key areas, particularly in Queens.
In New Jersey, school districts preemptively shut today, bracing for possible flooding.
Remember, where it rains, it can flood. As we learned tragically last month,
the storm continues to strengthen off the coast and could still become a bomb cyclone like the one that just slammed the west coast. NBC's Al Roker explains.
This nor'easter is intensifying, and so, of course, it qualifies as a nor'easter because those winds are coming in out of the northeast along the coast. Now, whether it's a bomb cyclone, that means it has to see its pressure drop 24 millibars in 24 hours. It's still a little too early to tell, but we'll know by tomorrow. The one thing we do know, climate change is making this more likely. We will see with these warmer waters, we're going to see more of a clash of these warm waters and colder air, causing for rapidly intensifying storms along our coasts.
Tonight, the rain will be pushed out of New England by punishing winds as an unpredictable, powerful storm refuses to let go.
All right, Stephanie Goss joins us now from Lower Manhattan there in Battery Park City. Looking at the radar, Steph, it looks like the rain's headed your way at any moment. How bad could those winds get tonight?
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of a reprieve right now. We're in kind of a pocket, but it's coming back. The rain's coming back. The winds are coming back. The wind really being the final punch from this storm. It'll be upwards of 60 miles an hour out on Long Island, Tom, but the really strong winds, 75-plus mile an hour gusts, will be up in New England on Cape Cod and Boston, and that's when things can get really dangerous, Tom.
Yeah, and on that point, Steph, as you know, as we both know, it doesn't take much here for the power to go out.
Yeah, you know, there were a few thousand power outages overnight, but now you have the wind coming, and a lot of the trees in this region still have their leaves. Together with the rain and the wind catching those leaves, it is a deadly combination for those power lines, and they're worried that there could be tens of thousands of people without power by tomorrow morning. Tom?
Stephanie Gosk for us tonight. Steph, we thank you for that. We want to stay on this extreme weather now. So let's bring in WNBC weather anchor Dave Price. Dave, we were just hearing about those strong winds from Steph just now. It's going to get dangerous out there tonight.
Yeah, just one piece of the equation. We're also dealing with rain. So let's walk on over and take a look at the situation. This is that mass of energy, that nor'easter, which stretches all the way from sections of northern New England back out to the Ohio Valley. So that's what we're dealing with. Already some areas today receiving upwards of 5 inches of rain. And there's more coming. 28 million people potentially impacted by a flood threat, stretching all the way from central New York out into Pennsylvania and pushing into metropolitan areas like Boston and New York. Now, through Wednesday, gradually we'll see that rain come to an end. Gusty winds, though, are going to remain in place, and that is a concern as well. Now, the rainfall is going to create the risk of flooding, and streams and city flooding as well could be worsened by the fact that we have leaves which are clogging storm drains. So that's going to be a concern, especially in urban locations. We'll keep an eye on that. The storm totals could wind up between 3 and 6 inches, and even rainfall rates over the next 24 hours could be at 1 to 2 inches an hour. That's a lot for a lot of these drainage locations to handle. Now, as we roll on through into, let's say, Wednesday, we see some of the strongest winds into sections of New England, where right along the Cape, we could see winds approaching hurricane strength. So there's a lot to deal with. Power outages, well, we could see trees down, power lines out, especially as we head to the east and up through New England. And, of course, those are complicated by the fact that we still have so many leaves on the trees, and that creates friction, which brings them right down. So, Tom, a lot to go through in the next 24 hours. We still have this nor'easter to get rid of.
Yep, we are watching it, Dave. We thank you for that. We want to turn to politics now. The race for governor heating up in Virginia. Tonight, President Biden is campaigning for Democrat Terry McAuliffe. Will the president stop making an impact on the extremely tight race and what it could mean for Democrats in the midterm elections? Kristen Welker explains.
Tonight, a critical test for President Biden campaigning next door in Virginia. But with Mr. Biden's poll numbers dropping, can he boost support for Democrat Terry McAuliffe, a former governor?
This election is about the next chapter of Virginia.
The president is the latest top Democrat to barnstorm in the state.
We're at a turning point right now.
Still, despite the high-powered help, McAuliffe is locked in a tight race against Republican Glenn Youngkin in a state that's recently gone blue.
We've got people flocking to our campaign. People walk up to me every minute and say, Glenn, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm voting for you.
The Republican businessman walking a fine line when it comes to the marquee name in his party, former President Trump. Mr. Trump endorsed Youngkin, but has not campaigned with him. McAuliffe is trying to link Youngkin to the former president, and it's working on some early voters.
Why did you vote for Terry McAuliffe?
Because I'm supporting the Democrat this year. I didn't even look at the Republican candidate because of the last 4 years, honestly.
But Youngkin has gained ground by running attack ads highlighting this controversial McAuliffe comment, which McAuliffe insists was taken out of context.
I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach.
A strategy that could be resonating in the all-important suburbs, which Mr. Trump lost in 2020.
I'm going to vote for Youngkin. I think, with these school board meetings and everything like that, everything's in chaos.
And tonight, there are still voters who are undecided, including Democrat Christina Davis.
Do you know who you're going to vote for Virginia governor?
I have no idea. I'm still up and down and seeing what people are really going to do and if they're true to their word.
Kristen Welker there on the campaign trail from Virginia. Kristen, I want to go back to that attack ad we just saw in your story. The McAuliffe campaign saying the former governor was taken out of context. What exactly happened there? Because parents obviously want the right to be able to voice their opinion to the schools educating their kids.
That's right, Tom. This is a complicated issue, and it's a debate about which books children should read in school, like Toni Morrison's Beloved, a fictional story involving slavery. McAuliffe made those comments during a recent debate while defending legislation that he vetoed in his previous term as governor that would have allowed parents to prevent their children from studying sexually explicit literature. McAuliffe is basically arguing parents shouldn't determine which books get taught in AP classes, while Youngkin believes parents should have a say. Well, Youngkin has seized on this issue and in a new attack ad features a parent who agrees with him. It's all an attempt to try to win back those critical suburban voters.
You've been watching this race very closely. It's interesting. Terry McAuliffe is talking a lot more about the former president, President Trump, than he is about the current president, who's his close friend and ally, President Biden, who's, we should say, point out, still in his current administration. What does that tell you about what's happening in Virginia, a state that Biden won by 10 points?
Well, I think that is the key point, right? Former President Trump lost Virginia big, and he lost because he lost suburban voters. So that's why you're seeing so much of a focus there. McAuliffe thinks this is a winning strategy, and if he's right, Tom, expect Democrats to take a page from this playbook in those all-important midterms next year, Tom.
Kristen Welker for us at the White House. Kristen, thank you. Staying with this Virginia gubernatorial election right now, the one that everyone is watching. Let's bring in NBC national political correspondent Steve Kornacki. He's at the big board tonight for us. Steve, let's keep it real simple for our viewers. Joe Biden won this state by 10 points just a year ago. How is this race so tight?
Yeah, and it is tight, Tom. I mean, we just put this up to remind you, this is the average of all the polls right now in Virginia. There's a whole bunch floating around, but it's got McAuliffe barely ahead by a point right now. Why is it so tight? Here's one big trend that we've seen for the last decades in Virginia. Remember, this Virginia governor's race is always held the year after the presidential election. What you see here is what party controlled the presidency for every modern Virginia governor's race. Now watch this. Look which party won the governor's races. Almost always, it's the opposite party. Go back to 77, the Democrats had the White House, the Republicans won the governorship, and on and on. The opposite party, the opposite party. There has only been one exception in modern times where the president's party actually turned around and a year after the presidential election won Virginia. 2013, Barack Obama was the president, and the Democrats won Virginia. That Democrat was Terry McAuliffe.
So, Steve, are you seeing any trends? Because we always break down Virginia. We talk about those suburbs around D.C. where most people live. Are you seeing anything different this year than you were a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some indications the suburbs are going to look different, and the question becomes how different. So let me give you an example. If we call up here, let's get the Virginia map from 2020. Remember, as you said, Joe Biden won the state by 10 points. The reason Virginia has been getting bluer and bluer, a lot of it has to do with Northern Virginia. Take a look here, Loudoun County. This is exurbs, suburbs, big, fast-growing outside Washington, D.C. Joe Biden won this thing by 25 points last year, right? Look at the trend in Loudoun County in modern times. Biden won it by 25. Clinton in 2016 won it by 17. Go back a step further. Look at this. In 2012, less than a decade ago, Mitt Romney came within 5 points of carrying Loudoun County. So from that to Joe Biden by 25 points, that's how blue Loudoun County has become. The polls are indicating that places like this are closer this year. Youngkin's not going to win. Glenn Youngkin, the Republican's not going to win Loudoun County. Can he get within 15 points? Can he get down to like 10 or 12 points behind Terry McAuliffe? If he can erase some, not all, but if he can erase some of those Democratic gains in places like Loudoun County, that could be enough to carry him statewide.
Steve, I got one more for you. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this one, but I know you're ready. What's the word on turnout? What are people thinking? Sometimes in an off-year election, you don't get a big turnout, but it seems like a lot of people are paying attention to this one.
Yeah, it'll be lower, obviously, than the presidential election. That's just always going to be the case. But we can show you 4.4 million people voted in Virginia in the presidential election last year. I think right now we're expecting probably about 2/3 of that total, probably about 3 million people voting. For a governor's race, it's a very high number.
Steve Kornacki at the big board for Top Stories. Steve, thanks. Now to New Mexico and the new image that surfaced, taken before that horrific accident on set. This is authorities are preparing to release new information. Miguel Almaguer tonight in Santa Fe for Top Story.
Tonight with our first look on the set of Rust, inside the very church where actor Alec Baldwin fatally shot cinematographer Helena Hutchins, we could soon learn if criminal charges will be filed in the apparent accidental killing. Investigators say before Baldwin pulled the trigger, Assistant Director Dave Halls announced the gun was safe for use, usually a job handled by the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez.
What's your take on what's going to happen here?
Well, I think, Miguel, that somebody is going to jail. You have a woman who has died and someone was injured from a gunshot on a movie set where real live ammunition should never be.
So was it loaded with a real bullet or one? I cannot tell you that.
Also at the center of the investigation, whether the deadly round fired here on set was a blank or a live bullet that somehow made its way onto the production. Authorities have already seized guns, boxes of ammunition, and spent rounds from the ranch. Prop master Neil Zermowski says he walked away from a job to work on the movie because he could see the low-budget film was cutting corners.
The dynamic that the producers were orchestrating was unsafe.
Amid new calls for legislation that bans real weapons on sets, tonight a push to prevent another tragedy that comes too late after a scene here went terribly wrong.
Here at the ranch, the preliminary investigation appears over. Tomorrow, the sheriff will join the district attorney to lay out their case. Tom?
All right, Miguel, thank you for that. We turn tonight to the abuse scandal rocking the NHL. The Chicago Blackhawks general manager stepping down after an investigation found the organization failed to respond promptly to 2010 allegations that an assistant head coach sexually assaulted a player. Megan Fitzgerald reports.
Tonight, the NHL's Chicago Blackhawks at the center of a disturbing sexual assault investigation. The team's general manager out. Stan Bowman resigning after an investigation commissioned by the team found he and other senior officials failed to respond promptly to allegations that an assistant coach, Brad Aldrich, sexually assaulted a player in 2010 during the team's Stanley Cup run. According to the report, Aldrich told the player, "I'll make sure you never play in the NHL or walk again," if he did not engage in sexual activity with him. In the report, Aldrich says the encounter was consensual.
What is clear is that after being informed of Aldrich's alleged sexual harassment and misconduct with a player, no action was taken for 3 weeks.
Senior Vice President Al McIsaac fired. The Blackhawks admitting they didn't do enough to protect the player.
It is clear that in 2010, the executives of this organization put team performance above all else. John Doe deserved better from the Blackhawks.
Bowman releasing a statement saying he was made aware of potential inappropriate behavior by Aldrich involving a player and promptly reported the matter, but regrets assuming it would be investigated. The team says the report was conducted in response to 2 lawsuits filed against the franchise. One alleging the 2010 sexual assault, another filed by a former student Aldrich was convicted of assaulting in Michigan. The NHL fining the Blackhawks organization $2 million for inadequate procedures and mishandling of the allegations. Commissioner Gary Bettman saying in a statement, this response should send a clear message to all NHL clubs and all NHL personnel that inappropriate acts must be addressed in a timely fashion.
All right, Megan Fitzgerald joins us now live from Chicago. Megan, I know you've been working this story all day, and there's some late-breaking news concerning that ousted GM, Stan Bowman, and his involvement in the 2022 Winter Olympics. What can you tell us?
Well, what we know is that Stan Bowman, as you mentioned, he was supposed to be the general manager of the U.S. men's Olympic ice hockey team. But as of tonight, Tom, he has stepped down.
All right, Megan Fitzgerald with that breaking news. Megan, thank you. Still ahead tonight, the TikTok star charged with murder. Why authorities say he murdered his wife and another person inside this California high-rise. Plus, the officer racing to save a choking toddler the moment he found the child unresponsive on a freeway. And Dave Chappelle returns to the stage addressing the controversy of his Netflix special, but refusing to apologize. Vaughn Hilliard in the house joining Top Story tonight with more on what the comedian says and what he's revealing about an upcoming documentary and who's not signing on. Top Story's just getting started. Stay with us. Back now with the latest fallout from Dave Chappelle's newest Netflix special, the comedian posting a new video to Instagram addressing accusations of transphobia, but refusing to apologize. Chappelle also revealing his new documentary has been shut out by major film festivals. NBC News Now correspondent Vaughn Hilliard has those details.
Facing fury over a recent stand-up routine, a defiant Dave Chappelle returning to the stage, attempting to turn serious criticisms into punchlines.
You said you want a safe working environment at Netflix. Well, it seems like I'm the only one that can't go to the office anymore.
The comedian responding to weeks of backlash surrounding his Netflix special, The Closer.
Gender is a fact. This is a fact.
His comments in the show widely condemned as transphobic, leading some Netflix staffers to protest their own company for airing it.
Thank God for Ted Sarandos at Netflix. He's the only one that didn't cancel me yet.
Chappelle offering up no apologies, saying he's open to meeting with transgender employees at Netflix, but only on his terms.
You will not summon me. I am not bending to anybody's demands. First of all, you cannot come if you have not watched my special from beginning to end. You must come to a place of my choosing and a time of my choosing.
The comedian not addressing specific criticisms of his material, which advocacy groups have slammed for conflating the ideas of gender and sex and making harmful jokes at the expense of the trans community.
TERF is an acronym. Stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists. This is a real thing. This is a group of women that hate transgender. They don't hate transgender women, but they look at trans women the way we blacks might look at blackface. I'm Team TERF. I agree. I agree, man. Gender is a fact.
Those comments sparking outrage, prompting some trans employees and allies at Netflix to stage a walkout last week.
I'm tired.
Rally organizers presenting a list of demands to Netflix executives, calling for a more inclusive environment at the company. Not on that list, a meeting with Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle doesn't get to suck the light out of this moment. This is a moment where we are coming together in a unified effort.
Netflix, however, continues to stand by its decision to stream Chappelle's work. But according to Chappelle, they're the only ones. A new Chappelle documentary is slated for its debut next week, but the comedian will be releasing it himself.
Not a film company, not a movie studio, not a film festival, nobody will touch this film. You have to answer the question, am I canceled or not? Then let's go.
Vaughn Hilliard joins us now live on set. So, Vaughn, you know, we heard Dave Chappelle there saying he wants to meet with transgender Netflix employees. Do they want to meet with him?
No, they don't want to meet with him. And instead, their focus is on Netflix and other companies. Essentially, what they're telling these Netflix executives is that Dave Chappelle should be an example. They have their own list of demands. And so far, Netflix continues to stand by Dave Chappelle. But those employees say, look, there needs to be a better effort to hire trans and non-binary individuals at the workplace, but also to promote and create a new fund in order to promote leadership positions for trans individuals. And they said the other part is they need to make sure there are disclaimers ahead of any transphobic material in the future on the streaming platform.
Okay, Vaughn, thank you for that. When we come back, the future of flying. TSA now testing out facial recognition that would be used instead of a boarding pass, and the technology could be coming to an airport near you by the holidays. And Japan's princess got married today, but now she's forced to leave the royal family. Why her nuptials sparked protest in the country, and why the newlyweds are now heading to New York. Stay with us. Back now with Top Stories newsfeed, and we begin with the TikTok star accused of killing his wife and another man at a San Diego apartment. Ali Abdul Aban pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of murder. Prosecutors allege he fatally shot his 29-year-old wife, Anna, and another victim because he thought his wife was cheating on him. The suspect, known for his impersonations, including one of Scarface's Tony Montana, has more than 1 million followers on social media. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has signed a law restricting transgender students in school sports. The bill requires students to play on teams that correspond with the gender on birth certificates that were assigned at the time of their birth. Athletes cannot use documents that have been legally changed. The bill will affect students from elementary school to the university level. It's set to take effect in January. The Miami officer rushing to save a choking 1-year-old. Dash cam footage capturing the moment the officer spotted the child who was unconscious on the side of a freeway. The officer using his first aid training and was able to clear the toddler's airway. The child was taken to the hospital and is expected to be okay. And the CDC has extended COVID-19 restrictions on cruise ships into January. The agency requires ships to sail with at least 95% of people vaccinated or perform a test cruise to demonstrate safety procedures. The order was set to expire on Monday, but will now be in effect until January 15th. All right, next tonight, powerful tech executives facing sharp questions from lawmakers. Snapchat, YouTube, and TikTok appearing before a Senate panel on Capitol Hill over the alleged harm their products have on children. Hallie Jackson has more in Washington tonight.
For the first time tonight, reps from TikTok and Snapchat facing fiery questions from Congress.
Your parents, how can you allow this?
Those executives from platforms hugely popular with young teens defending their practices along with YouTube, arguing they protect kids and trying to separate themselves from Facebook.
TikTok is not a social network based on followers.
Snapchat was a decidedly different platform where people could come and actually talk to the friends that they have in real life.
And we do not support features such as comments or live chat.
Lawmakers looking for more.
Being different from Facebook is not a defense. That bar is in the gutter.
Congress could put in place stricter privacy laws and other protections for kids and teens. For example, banning like buttons and autoplay, requiring platforms have a way to flag harmful content, and preventing websites from promoting influencer ads to young teens.
We're open to getting feedback from outside experts and policymakers and parents about ways we can improve.
We are constantly trying to balance the freedom of expression with being responsible.
Some senators looking for a stronger commitment to support specific legislation.
This bill's been out there for years, and you still don't have a view on it.
And even though there's rare bipartisan unity on this, there's still a question about what specifically will Congress do, the actual nitty-gritty details, and when they'll do it. Senator Blumenthal telling NBC News that action could take a matter of months. Tom, back to you.
Okay, Hallie, thank you for that. Now to Top Stories Global Watch, and we begin with the cyber attack in Iran that crippled gas stations across the country. Video shows drivers stranded in long lines after the hack blocked government-subsidized gas cards many Iranians used to fill up. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack. Officials expect the cards will be back up and running tomorrow. In the Americas, Honduras says it has vaccinated nearly 8,000 Nicaraguans against COVID-19 over the last few days. Honduras administering nearly 500 shots a day at 2 border crossings. It comes as neighboring Nicaragua runs low on vaccine doses. The president of Honduras says the move also helps beat the risk of infection at home due to significant movement along the borders. And Queen Elizabeth will not attend the COP26 climate change conference in Scotland. Buckingham Palace says the Queen has regretfully decided not to travel following advice from her doctor to rest. She will deliver a video message to the delegates. The 95-year-old monarch holding virtual meetings today from Windsor Castle, her first official engagement since she was briefly hospitalized last week. All right, to Japan now, in the controversial royal wedding. The country's princess marrying her college sweetheart despite pushback from her family and protest from the public. And now Meghan and Harry aren't the only royals to leave palace life behind for a fresh start in the U.S. Matt Bradley has the details.
Tonight, a marriage that's breaking up a royal family. Japan's Princess Mako, the eldest daughter of Crown Prince Fumohito and niece of the reigning emperor, choosing love over the crown. Today, she was wed to her college sweetheart, a commoner named Kei Komuro. There was no ceremony, no pomp or pageantry normally associated with other Japanese weddings. The couple was first engaged in 2017, but the wedding was delayed following a financial scandal involving the groom's mother, leading the public to question whether they were marrying for money. The backlash was severe, with protesters taking to the streets today.
Now there's this extra news about, questionable financial dealings on his mother's part. That kind of breaks that image of this kind of perfect life partner that a princess deserves. The connection of why is his mother's problems tied to him. I think Japan is still a fairly traditional society.
Princess Mako defending her decision to marry, saying she's suffering from PTSD from the negative attention. Today saying, I understand there are various thoughts on my marriage with Kei. I'm very sorry to the people who had trouble with our marriage. Kei means everything to me. And for us, this marriage is needed for us to live and cherish our feelings. After the wedding, she bid farewell to her parents and hugged her sister goodbye. The couple will live in America. Komuro has a job with a New York law firm, many comparing the break they made from their royal ties to the move made by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle after they broke up from the British royal family.
Prince Harry had his royal wedding at the taxpayer's expense. Princess Mako did not have a royal wedding at the taxpayer's expense. The Japanese have been out protesting basically since the wedding was actually announced, even though it was a civil wedding.
Mako rejecting the $1.3 million payment that a royal would normally receive when losing their imperial status by marrying a commoner. In a statement, her father, the Crown Prince, said he approved of his daughter's, quote, unprecedented marriage, partly because she and Komuro had, quote, never wavered in their thoughts.
Matt Bradley joins us now from London. Princess Mako has given up her royal standing. She rejected that $1 million payment. We saw that there in your story. They're now moving to New York. So why did the Japanese public fight so hard against her marriage, even protesting today? I mean, it's clear these newlyweds are clearly in love.
Yeah, Tom, I mean, it's a great question. Look, we have to remember, for the vast majority of Japanese people, they either don't care, are not involved, are not interested, or they probably champion the princess. They say that she should be casting out on her own. A lot of Japanese people in modern times are rejecting what is really the traces of misogyny in that royal family. No woman can ascend to the throne, to the chrysanthemum throne, in Japan. But also we have to remember that, like here in Britain, the royal family there is the sovereign. That is, the person is the state. It's something that we as Americans don't really think about very much, but they are that tradition. And it wasn't so long ago, Tom, that the Japanese emperor was thought of as a deity on earth. So for Princess Mako to do this, it's considered not just a betrayal of the royal family, it's considered an unpatriotic betrayal of the nation. But again, it's a very small minority of people who would probably think that way, Tom.
I'm sure they're looking forward to their new start in New York. All right, Matt, thank you for that. Next tonight, the future of flying. TSA has begun using facial recognition that will replace your ID and boarding pass. And you could see this technology next time you go to the airport. NBC's Tom Costello has a closer look.
Just in time for the holiday travel rush, Delta Airlines and the TSA taking facial recognition to the next level. State-of-the-art technology rolling out here in Atlanta, also Detroit. For those who opt in, no more scanning your paper ticket or mobile boarding pass. All you'll need is your face. Passengers will check in using the phone app with their passport photo on file. Once here, no need to show your driver's license to an agent. Simply walk up to the kiosk, drop your mask. The camera then compares your face with the photo on file and spits out your bag tag. Put the bag on the belt and off it goes. To join the program, you must be a Delta SkyMiles member and have TSA PreCheck. Then just upload your passport. Security checkpoints also get easier. Once you're in the TSA PreCheck lane, you simply walk up to the camera, take off your mask,
and come on through.
And you're through. The TSA says biometric scanners are faster and more accurate than manually checking IDs, speeding passengers through airports and onto planes. When you show up at your gate, no phone, no ticket. You simply walk up to the camera, take off your mask.
Welcome aboard, sir.
You're done. A lot of people may be concerned about their photograph in your system for privacy reasons.
Absolutely. We, in fact, do not store any imagery of any customer. All we do is once this kiosk takes your photo, it maps that photo with what Customs has in their database based on your passport information.
Soon, Delta and the TSA plan to expand to New York's LaGuardia Airport, Minneapolis, LAX, and other hubs, taking facial recognition from the curb to the jet bridge. In many ways, this technology is not unlike using facial recognition to open your phone, or some businesses require facial recognition to get into the building. What happened during a pandemic when all airlines were really hit with a financial stomach blow? In fact, Delta decided to spend money on technology that will give them a competitive advantage in the months and years ahead. And they believe that facial recognition technology, biometric screening, is in fact what will separate them from the rest of the pack. And it's becoming the kind of technology that we all expect as we interact with not just our phones, but our world around us. Tom, back to you.
Tom Costello, thank you. Coming up, county to county, NBC News traveling across the country to report on voter issues ahead of the midterms. And next, we are in red counties to hear how former President Trump is shaping votes in future elections. Back now with more politics. Today is county to county kickoff day for NBC News. We're spotlighting a handful of counties from coast to coast. Voters in these areas will give us a sense of what to expect in the 2022 midterm elections and beyond. Dasha Burns and Ellison Barber are in red counties talking to folks about Trump's hold on the GOP.
We're in Chattooga County, Georgia.
This is New York style pizza, strictly.
Steve Pledger brought a slice of the big city with his pizza shop here.
I love to go to Manhattan.
But the one thing he could do without? Liberal politics.
Today's world, I'm a Republican.
The kind of voter Republicans are counting on to take back Congress. Steve voted twice for President Trump. A recent NBC News poll showing 77% of GOP voters have a positive view of the former president. Just 12% view him negatively.
How strong is the Trump train here?
It's strong. It's strong.
In 2016, then President Trump won this deeply evangelical county with 78% of the vote. In 2020, it climbed to 80%.
My faith, it influences the way that I vote. It really does. If a Republican come out and said that they were pro-choice, he's off my list. He gone.
The GOP is red hot in areas like this, but to win, they also have to keep new Republicans in places like Luzerne County, Pennsylvania. Dasha Burns is there.
A lot has changed here since Barack Obama sat on this very stool in 2008. Luzerne County had elected Democrats since 1988, but that all changed in 2016 when Trump won here by double digits.
We use the excavator either.
Norb Dotzel's family has been working Luzerne County soil for decades. He says Democrats lost this blue-collar county because they're focused on the wrong issues.
Diesel fuel prices are through the roof, and they're not stopping. You can't get truck tires. Even though I hate to raise my prices, I have to.
Dan Titus drives trucks for Norb. He says he felt abandoned by the Democratic Party.
I don't really think they're standing for the people. I'm a registered Democrat, but I did vote Republican for President Trump. He didn't tolerate no bull.
If the signs are any indication, Trump's support here has not wavered much.
how much do you think he's going to influence what happens?
I think big time. Yeah, I think he's going to be a big influence.
Then there's Delaware County, Ohio, where Trump's lead narrowed in 2020 and where we met Tom Fortunato. He has Parkinson's and says the push to scrap Obamacare and its protections for pre-existing conditions pushed him away from the GOP.
That would have been a tragedy for a lot of people.
The politics of the last 4 years has made a lot of people rethink their party.
This is Melanie Farkas. She's a Democrat running for local office here, but she thinks she has a shot because of some of the changes in this county. Donald Trump won Delaware County by 16 points in 2016, but that margin narrowed to just 7 points in 2020. The midterms now a test for the party and its voters.
I'm going to monitor the 2022 and see what the reaction is and how far they've distanced themselves from President Trump.
But with many Republicans hoping for Mr. Trump to make a comeback, could the GOP bounce back without him?
All right, Dasha and Ellison join us now live. Dasha, you know, Delaware County there in Ohio, it used to be a longtime GOP stronghold, but the margins have narrowed in the past few years. What can we expect in the coming year?
Well, Tom, for the voters we've been talking to, they say that depends on the direction that the Republican Party takes over the course of the next year. And look, Delaware County, it is not going blue anytime soon. But the question here is, will the margins in the midterms look more like they have in the past, where Republican candidates were winning by double digits, or will they look more like they did in 2020 when those margins narrowed? We talked to the GOP chair here, and he is confident going into the midterms. He says that some of those Republicans that may have shied away from Trump will come back into the fold because of what's happening under the Biden administration. He points to things like rising gas prices, to inflation, to the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and says that's going to bring some of those lost Republicans home. But we also have seen Democrats trying to capitalize on some of the changes here. Not only those moderate Republicans, Tom, but also this is one of the fastest growing counties in Ohio. The population has just exploded here, and a lot of that has come from more liberal and more urban Columbus. And Democrats are looking to make gains in that way here too, Tom.
Okay, Dasha, thank you for that. And Ellison, Chattooga County, Georgia. It's gotten redder and redder every year. The population there, though, has declined in recent years. But how's voter turnout going to look when Donald Trump is not on the ballot?
Yeah, it's interesting because as the population declined here, when Trump was on the ballot, voter turnout went up. It is a weird, kind of complicated thing because when we talk to voters here, people who identify as Republican or who say they typically vote Republican, they tell us that they really don't trust the election process. Remember, Donald Trump has spent a lot of time sowing doubt about the election process, and he's specifically gone after Republican officials in this state. People here, they've paid attention to that, and they say they do not necessarily trust the election process, but they still say they plan to vote in the midterms. And there are really two key reasons for that. One, people here, they genuinely believe that this country is moving in a direction towards socialism, to communism, and they're worried about that. They don't like that. They see COVID restrictions as infringing on their freedoms. The other big issue that will drive them to the polls, abortion. This is a deeply religious area. They are evangelical voters here. And for many people, Tom, that is not just an issue, it is the issue. Tom?
All right, Ellison and Dasha for us tonight. We appreciate that reporting. Thank you. When we come back, an excruciating wait, the mother battling COVID-19, finally able to hold her baby after 50 days. The emotional moment, we're going to show it to you, that this family has been hoping for. It's all coming up. Finally tonight, an Indiana mother fighting for her life against COVID gave birth to her third child while unconscious and on a ventilator. Her family not sure if she was going to make it. It's been a difficult couple of months, as you can imagine, but now a moment the family will never forget and a reason for that mom to smile. Tonight, new mom Autumn Carver is celebrating a victory in the middle of the long war with COVID-19. For the first time since giving birth more than 50 days ago, Autumn was finally able to hold her infant son Huxley.
It was an answered prayer. We've been praying for that for nearly 2 months, every day, for her to get well enough that we could set this up and have this happen.
The 34-year-old gave birth to her third child in late August while battling fighting COVID at Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis. While Huxley was able to return home to his two older sisters within 10 days, his mother remained on a ventilator for more than a month.
She's fought and fought and fought for her life every single day.
After weeks of gradual progress, doctors proposed a plan for Autumn to finally meet Huxley, a physical and emotional milestone the family had been waiting for.
So I met him at the door of her room and grabbed Huxley out of his car seat, and it was a very special memory that I'll never forget. Handing him for the first time to Autumn, who's laying in a bed fighting for her life, and we both hugged him and kissed him and looked at each other's eyes, and it was a very, very powerful moment for sure.
An emotional moment for all in the ICU.
All the nurses and doctors that are helping take care of Autumn. I don't think there was a dry eye in the ICU where she's at. Immediately when she held him for the first time, he was at peace, he was calm.
The next step, to beat COVID altogether. To do that, Autumn was recently transferred to a hospital in Chicago, Northwestern Medicine, where doctors are evaluating her lung condition. The goal, to survive and hold little Huxley somewhere other than a hospital room.
I'm praying that her lungs just continue to get better, her body continues to get stronger, and we can get weaned off of ECMO and she can walk out of the hospital eventually.
We are hoping and praying for her also. We want to thank our Indianapolis affiliate WTHR for that story. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.